Libugele for the culture on Chris Maggie TV.
What up, everyone? Chris Maggie here. Welcome back to another episode of Fi Di Kulcha. We're back again with a virtual interview for y'all. And today I am here with Bumo, and she is from Zimbabwe, living in Canada. Thank you for joining us, Bumo.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
So Bumo and I are no strangers to each other, which is going to make this interview so much easier because it's like a chat for us. We actually went to school together in Newfoundland. Our last year of school was pretty dramatic together. We made it though. But today I want us to be able to learn a little bit more about Zimbabwe because it's one of those countries that I don't think I know a lot of. Like when you hear about African countries, you know about like Nigeria and Ghana, but I feel like Zimbabwe is one of those countries that kind of gets forgotten in the conversation. So I want to shed some light on Zimbabwe today, okay?
Thank you.
So we're just gonna dive right in, and I want to ask you, give us a visual of where Zimbabwe is located in the world.
Okay, so Zimbabwe is in Africa. We'll start there. And Africa is right underneath Europe. And it's shaped, hopefully you know your map, but it's shaped like this. And at the southern part of Africa, the most southern country is South Africa. And right on top is Zimbabwe. And to the side of that is Botswana. And a bit up here is Zambia. Mm-hmm. And on the side is Mozambique. So Zimbabwe is landlocked by those four countries, and we don't have any oceans around us. But we have rivers and stuff, so we're okay.
Okay, cool. For those of you who are wondering about other countries that she'd mentioned, I did have an interview that I did with someone from Zambia. So you can go ahead, click that eye icon and watch that video as well after you watch this one. So yeah, get to know your African countries a little bit more. So, Bumo. Mm-hmm. What is the official language in Zimbabwe, and do you know how many languages they are, and is it based on like the types of groups? I think tribes is probably what you guys would call them, your tribal groups.
Mm-hmm. So growing up in Zimbabwe, so I grew up in Zimbabwe until I was 11, and I knew of four. I knew of English, because that was an official language, and I knew of Shona and Ndebele, and those are the two main tribes that are like a good 70% of Zimbabweans speak Shona, and then maybe like 20, maybe 30% speak Ndebele, and that's the language I grew up speaking in my house. So I would speak English and Ndebele, but my dad is from a southern western part of Zimbabwe, and they're very close to Botswana, and they speak a language called Kalanga, and the Kalanga language is very close to the Tswana language, which is spoken in Botswana. So my dad speaks Kalanga, and he can also understand and speak Tswana. So those are the four languages I knew. And then as I grew up, I remember I went back to visit when I was 20, and I went to go visit. I had a sponsored child in Wange, and my auntie told me that, they speak Venda. And I was like, what is this? So I learned of another language. But then like thinking back now after my travels, and when I tell people I'm from Zimbabwe, they're like, oh, you speak Swahili. I'm like, nah, I don't. There's some people who speak Swahili in Zimbabwe. It's not a big group, but there's some. And recently, actually, I met a Zimbabwean who told me that there's 17 official languages in Zimbabwe. And I was like, why are you lying? He's like, no, I'm not. Because he greeted me. I greeted him in Shona just to show my respect, because he gave us his parking. And then he answered. And then I was like, I only know how to greet in Shona. I don't speak Shona. And he's like, oh, what language do you speak? I'm like, oh, I'm Ndebele. And then he greets me in Ndebele, and we get talking. And he's like, yeah, there's 17 official languages. I speak all of them. He works for the UN. So maybe he's telling the truth. But if he's wrong, go after him. His name is Kizai. Don't come up to me.
I'm under the bus there.
yeah, because to be honest, I only know of the 5 that I mentioned. Mm-hmm. But he might be right. Like he might actually be right.
That's interesting to know. So what group would you represent yourself to be a part of?
So I would say I am Ndebele. So I guess people in Zimbabwe identify with the language they speak. Okay. Yeah, and Ndebele is a language very close to the Zulu language, which is spoken in South Africa. Yeah, and recently I was doing a bit of like research about my country, and I found out that my people left South Africa and came to Zimbabwe after some strife between some of the leaders, like olden leaders, like Chaga Zulu, who
Mm-hmm.
was like a leader who I remember watching a movie when I was younger. All I remember about him was that he walked on fire. That's all I remember. And he was a warrior. He would wear like cultural clothing, and
Mm-hmm.
he walked on fire. But I know that my people came from the Zulu people in South Africa. Like we migrated after some strife, and we're like the Ndebele people. So if someone from South Africa speaks Zulu, I can understand. Like, yeah,
Oh.
but like some of the words are a bit different, but in general, I can understand.
Okay, okay, nice. So what you mentioned earlier, you mentioned
Mhm.
that your one of your official languages is English. So I'm
Mhm.
guessing that you guys were colonized by England at one point.
Yes, we were. So we were colonized by the British
Mhm.
for some time, and we got our independence April 18th, 1980.
Oh, you guys
Um,
are babies.
we are young, like we're so
Wow.
young. My mom is older than my country's independence.
Wow.
Yeah, like so our country is super, super young, but we're still like trying our
Mm-hmm.
best. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I actually have two friends who live in the US and they are from Zimbabwe and they
Oh.
also relate, they moved when they were pretty young.
Mhm.
So is that a common thing? Like a lot of people, like would you consider people from Zimbabwe to be nomadic? Like do you move a lot?
I think our country is not what it used to be because it used to be great. Like I remember when I was in Zimbabwe, my uncles would come and visit, and I remember thinking strategically, if I'm nice enough to them and I compliment them enough, they'll just reach in their pockets and give me their coins. And their coins would last me a week. Like I would be like the girl because I would
Oh.
buy candy for everyone for a week with just their coins. But fast forward to right before I left, things were getting really tough, and people started migrating. I remember like asking my dad when he was in Canada and I was here, and I was like, "Why are you even there? Like, we're okay." And he's just like, "I don't see this country doing well in the future, so it's better to
Mm.
kind of try go out and like build a lifestyle and bring back the wealth home." I was like, "Okay," but I remember also when I was in school, I had a friend who migrated to Australia. Like her family moved there, and then our neighbor they moved to the UK. So
Mm.
like it's not unusual to be in Zimbabwe and know a lot of people who are not in Zimbabwe.
Gotcha.
And recently, like a neighbor, a friend of mine that I used to play with, I met up with her, maybe not recent, 2, 3 years ago. I met up with her in Germany. She moved there
Oh.
to be an au pair. And she's like, I'm going to stay and just do school and, try to get some wealth and send it back home. I was like, oh, fair
Mm.
enough, fair enough. Yeah. So we're
Wow.
pretty nomadic in that sense. We try and move
Yeah.
and do better, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you know anything about what caused like the economy on a whole? Like what caused the issues with that?
I think this could be a generalization, but I think a lot of African countries suffer from corruption. So I think greed and corruption takes the better of us. Like our politicians can be living large, like really large, but then
Mm-hmm.
the like basic community is just sucky. And then also with corruption is that you see the politicians living large, and let's say you're a civil worker, like let's say you work at a passport place. I have a story for you. I remember we went back to Zimbabwe the first time when I was 18, and my mom and my uncle, they were like, "Hey, you guys should get your Zimbabwean passports," because we had to, at the time when I became Canadian, I had to denounce being Zimbabwean. So I wasn't Zimbabwean at all. But my mom's like, to keep your culture with you. So we went to go get the passports, and I remember we were in line. There was a long line, and the guy who was the one kind of moderating the line, he came and he's like, "Okay, I'm cutting the line here. Start over this side." And he cut it off right with us and the front. I was like, "Oh, okay." And we went to the other side. And then he came back 5 minutes later. He's like, "Okay, you guys who are here, stop. The line is going to start from here again." And we were out of nowhere first. I was like, "Hey, look at God." And I was like praising. I was like, "Okay, yay." And then I was happy we got our passports and we were driving home. And I was like to my mom, I'm like, "You see, like if you want positivity, you have to think positive mindsets." And she looked at me, she's like, "I bribed him. I paid him $100." And I was like, I was like, seriously? Like, what morals? Like, what is this? So, yeah, my country, like, people are always trying to get what they can. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember we were traveling also to my dad's village, and we got pulled over. And you know how your tires have like screws to kind of hold them in place? We had one
Mm-hmm.
that had fallen off, and the police guy was like, "There's one that's fallen off. Either like you know give me some small and I'll forget about it, or like I'll give you a full ticket." And my auntie was like, "You know what? These police are corrupt. Give me a ticket and write me a receipt." So we ended up like paying full price because my auntie, I guess, has integrity, but it's it's hard. I feel for them because I'm like, if you're not getting paid enough, you'll
Mm-hmm.
try to.
Any way to make money in different
Yeah,
ways.
but it's unfortunate though. It's so unfortunate, but it is what it is. It is what it is.
Man,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure a lot of my Caribbean friends who are watching this, you guys can
They're
relate
like,
because
yes.
yes, a lot of us we experience this, and one of the things
Oh,
we're really tired of with our governments is the corruption and that
yeah.
people are not getting enough, and that's why people are doing like illegal stuff basically to try and get by. Not justifying
Mm.
it, but there is a ripple effect of
It just keeps.
events.
It's like a circle. It keeps
Exactly.
happening.
Well, we're hoping for a better future. Hopefully, young leaders like us who are coming up, we can be that change because definitely
Fingers
leaders
crossed.
before us have definitely let us down. So,
Yeah.
sips tea right there.
Yes. 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 But it's
All
okay.
right.
It's gonna be better. It's gonna be
Yeah,
better.
it will be. I have faith in that too. All right. So, on to a more positive note, what are some fun facts? Like anyone who wants to visit Zimbabwe, what are some things they can look forward to, or what are some fun facts that you would like for people to know about Zimbabwe?
Okay. I think I don't know if this would be a fun fact for everyone, but for me, it's definitely a fun fact because I find Canada quite developed, and I know I'm lucky to be in Canada because it's not as overly developed as maybe let's say the States, because you can
Mm-hmm.
still go to some places and have a nature experience. But in Zimbabwe, you can go to a big place and have a nature experience. Like typically, people migrate to the cities, but then their grandparents still live in villages. And I'm very fortunate that my grandparents, my mom's family and my dad's family, they're both still in their village. So in the
Mm-hmm.
summers growing up, I would go to the village. So you can always have like a very rural experience if you want.
Mm-hmm.
And they would have cows and goats and chickens, and it was just like a very rural experience. Like, and I really enjoyed that for myself. I think that's what got me studying environmental science, just because I really
Oh,
love the environment in that regard. So that's a fun fact. Like you can have a rural experience in Zimbabwe. Like it's and people are very friendly and very welcoming, and they want you to experience our culture. Um, yeah, that's a fun fact, rural. And then I think another one is that we have a place called Victoria Falls, and it's the biggest waterfall in the world. I feel like people
oh,
don't know that. Yeah, and like I went to Niagara Falls when I had moved to Canada, and I was like, this is nice, but
but
in
not right.
Zimbabwe, they're like, we have Victoria Falls, and it's a really like it's one of the it's in between the borders of Zimbabwe and Zambia. So in
Oh,
Zimbabwe, you
yes.
have the very nice view. Zambia has
Mhm.
a little some, but it's like it's a huge and it's big, and tourists come all the time to see it. We're still developing it. It was developed at one point, and then the economy and all that kind of crashed. But
Mhm.
it's really beautiful to see. I think it would like amaze you. You can walk around and you could see wild animals. I saw a wild pig when I was there, and I was like, "Ooh, it was a
Wow.
bit scary, but it was cool. It was really cool." Like yeah.
Wow.
I
That's
think yeah,
beautiful.
there's two fun parts about Zimbabwe. It's rural, it's really nice, and then you can also see Victoria Falls. Yeah.
Nice. So, I gotta talk about the clothing because
Oh,
Bumo is always dressing nice. Ever since we went to school, she was always dressing nice. So I have to know, like, does Zimbabwe have their own like traditional clothing?
so I think colonization did a number on us.
Mm,
Because growing up, like during birthdays or going to church, we didn't have cultural clothings that we would wear. We would just dress nicely. So we
mm,
would have regular clothes we would wear during the week, but then when it was church day or birthdays, you would just put on like your Sunday best or your Sabbath best for me. Um, so we didn't really have cultural clothing, But I remember going to some weddings, some Zimbabwean weddings or Ndebele weddings, and I would see some Ndebele people dressed in Southern African clothing. So I think we kind of adopted that a bit. And we kind of were like, since we came from there, that also technically is ours. So some Ndebele people will wear like Southern African clothing. And there's even places in Zimbabwe where you can go to buy some cultural clothing, but it's not a very like known clothing attire, such as like Ghana. Like I'm wearing a dress that I got made in Ghana right now. Like I bought the fabric and I got someone to make it for me for relatively cheap. In Zimbabwe, you could do that also, but the material is not iconic to us. Like I feel like the material you could buy even in Canada in a way. But so I think we fall short on that a bit. I blame colonization.
Oh yes, definitely.
Yeah, it didn't number on us. Like,
man, that's really unfortunate, because the thing is, what people need to understand, because of the impact of colonization, a lot of our countries, a lot of our people, we were stripped of our identity. So there's a lot of things that we really don't know, because you can't find them in books. And some of those things, they died with our ancestors. So unless you had someone to pass it down to you, you ain't gonna know. So yes. So we're wrapping up. I want to thank Bumo so much. But before we go, she does have a blog that I really encourage you to go and check out. Could you please tell us a bit more about the blog?
Okay. So 2018 November, I moved to Ghana until 2019 June. I was there to work in the environmental field. But when I was there, I feel like I really fell in love with Africa. Like, I think Ghanaian people are amazing people, and they're really kind, and they really showed me how beautiful my continent is. And I was like, oh, I wanna put this into, the internet, show people how beautiful it is. So my blog is called exploreafricalove.com. You can go there. You can see. So far, I only have 3 tabs because those are the 3 countries I'm comfortable speaking about. So I have Zimbabwe, I have Ghana, and I have Togo. But I've also been to Botswana. So in time, I think I'll add that, and I'll add South Africa also. And I think this is an ongoing thing. So as I go to more African countries, I'll put more into the blog. But please check it out. It's called, so you can go www.exploreafricalove.com, Explore Africa Love, all one word. And you can see all the things I've written about exploring Africa.
Yeah. Awesome. And it will be on the screen as well, so they see. Go ahead, check her out, look out for more updates. I'm really loving the blogs because they are really giving me an opportunity to learn a bit more about Africa, because trust me, girl, I need to reach to that side of the world one day.
You have to come. I will take you. Like, you need to come.
I am actually, like, I encourage everyone, make friends with people from different countries, because that is the best way for you to go and explore countries and cultures, instead of you just going and staying at a hotel. Like, hotels are cool and all, but if you want to really explore the country, make genuine friends from the countries. All right,
come to someone's house, come to my house.
Exactly.
Like, got you.
All right. If you like this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, turn on your post notifications for more videos like this. A new episode every single Thursday at noon. Thank you so much again, Bumo. Don't forget to do road and do things. And until next time, Maggie is out.